out there and you don't really know what's going on. So Tarantino, in the last episode I mentioned like Pulp Fiction, and I mentioned Pulp Fiction and I mentioned like Reservoir Dogs, but a week or two ago I did an entire deep dive, entire binge, whatever you want to call it, of Tarantino's movies, and I basically watched all his 9 films. I watched like 2 films a day from him. Now, he only has 9 movies, right? And I'm gonna just quickly Google these, right? I know I don't read off of things on the show, but I sort of want to remember what his films were actually like. So just give me a second here. So, Quentin Tarantino movies right here, right? Yeah, I know I'm not usually like this, but I just want to do this. So here we go. So he's made, according to Google, he's made The Hateful Eight, Kill Bill Volume 1, Inglourious Basterds, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Django Unchained, Death Proof, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill Volume 2, Reservoir Dogs. There is From Dusk Till Dawn as well, which we can talk about. And there's these other movies on there as well, but it's not really like the bet. Like, it's not actually films he made. The thing is with Google, has when you search stuff up on Google, it tells you like this director or whatever made all of these films, but it's just films based on films he's made. So Kill Bill, The Hateful Eight was a film that I watched a bit later than the other ones, or something like that, right? I watched Tarantino's movies in a weird order because I didn't watch them from like the years it came out. But like, I watched The Hateful Eight. That was one. It was basically, this was a western. Pretty sure it's like a western movie, and it has Samuel L. Jackson, who's in Pulp Fiction. And it's kind of like a western about, and they're kind of in this one location, and it kind of drags on for a while. And I think the movie is not that, like, it's not that good, but it gets good once it starts going, I guess you could say. There's Django Unchained, which is another western, which, yeah, I definitely think that movie is a little bit better because you have Jamie Foxx, and there's more high intensity action and stuff like that, and it's one linear story as well, which is quite a bit of a twist from Tarantino's sort of random escapade of trying to make some random out of context thing feel so in context as you watch it. So there's that, and then there was Inglourious Basterds, which I thoroughly enjoyed that one. That was like, after watching Death Proof, that was like the one where it just came back to form with Tarantino, where there's this one part of the film where there's this guy just drinking milk with this guy, and you can just feel the intensity rising, and then all of this crazy stuff happens, and the film is so Tarantino, right? It's a World War II movie with Brad Pitt in it, and it doesn't even feel like a stereotypical World War movie, because there's war movies that depict the war like as they're in battle and stuff, but this is like dialogue heavy, character driven stuff, so it was good to see a bit of a unique twist on the World War kind of genre here. As I mentioned, Death Proof was a film that absolutely falls flat, right? You have these boring characters, horny drunk ladies in these cars, right? And you just have boring dialogue, and it just it's like 2 hours or something, and it feels like 3 hours at this point, right? And it has Kurt Russell in it, but they're basically just sent to die in a car, and when they die in the car, it's not even interesting, right? This is the kind of movie that you can actually, the thing is with movies that you don't want to use your phone as you're watching it, but this is a movie where you could actually put it on in the background and treat it like a podcast or something, because this movie was just really boring, and it was just not for me at all. Then there was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which was this depiction of Hollywood from Tarantino's perspective, growing up in the 60s with Brad Pitt, and also Leonardo DiCaprio. I thought the movie was actually not one of his best films he made, because it was just very long. It was really drawn out, and there are times when Tarantino's films can be really long and drawn out, but it can still be interesting. This is a case where it doesn't really happen for me, and I would have to rewatch this film because there is a lot that goes on and stuff. But it was another one linear story. It wasn't a random situation. So then we had that, right? But then there was Kill Bill Volume 1, which was really unique because what Tarantino did is he brought Japanese fighting styles and kind of like, John Wick-esque kind of combat here, where you would have some insane killings, because in John Wick you have a lot of insane killing, but she didn't kill them with pens, but like it was just a way, and it was just really artistic as well. Like, you just never really seen this from Tarantino, and so it was really good. And then going into the sequel of that with Uma Thurman, and you see that stuff, and Tarantino really does still bring home this idea that, okay, I am going to give you random things and launch straight into things, and then we're going to bring you up to speed and give you context later on, and it'll all make sense. Because there is this scene in the movie where, like, Uma Thurman's character, the White Bride or something like that, goes into this black lady's house, and they just absolutely beat the heck out of each other, and you really don't really know what's going on until later on in the film. And then she has this cargo, the pussy wagon, and you don't really know what's going on until later on in the film. And so he just regurgitates this whole, he keeps doing this thing, he keeps doing that, and Kill Bill is an example of like where Tarantino really shines. And as I mentioned for Death Proof, like, Death Proof is like where Tarantino just recycled ideas. He used the heavy dialogue, he used that, but it was for boring characters. But if you take a look at Kill Bill, you have interesting characters, and you didn't even expect that Uma Thurman would be taking out 200 men or whatever in this building. So there's a lot of unpredictable things in the film, and it really worked. But once we get to Volume 2, it drags itself on. It isn't as enjoyable. You get you get this weird character that you spend so much time with. He's trying to train Uma Thurman, because she, basically at the end of the movie and all that, she kind of lost steam, and she was bet up and stuff after all that fighting kind of thing. And you had that, and then you had them going to Kill Bill, but it took the whole movie to get there, and it just didn't seal the deal for me at all. Kill Bill Volume 1 is better than Volume 2, so that's my thoughts on that. So there's Jackie Brown, which is such an interesting one, because this is a movie that's more character driven, and it's like about the black lifestyle. The black lifestyle in America, and how black people lived amongst each other and all of that. And it was a lot of dialogue heavy stuff. Again, this is a really repetitive thing with Tarantino. It's a lot of dialogue, sort of heavy stuff here, but it's more character driven, and I respect the movie for that. As to say it's my favourite Tarantino movie, though, it's not my favourite, but I respect for what it does. Right? So yeah, there's definitely that, right? It's hard to even say which Tarantino movie is my favourite, because there's quite a few good films, but then there's those Death Proofs. There's Kill Bill Volume 2, but Kill Bill is split into 2 parts, but it's just the second part I didn't really like that much. And then there was Death Proof and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I definitely have to rewatch some of these at some stage, And I'm kind of late to the party when it comes to Tarantino, so I was never raised on this kind of movie sort of thing. So yeah, I think I've said enough about Tarantino at this point. Although there is From Dusk Till Dawn, which is this really crazy movie, right? It's got Tarantino in it. It's like a psychopath guy, and he actually turns into be this psychopath, and he's obsessed with feet and all of this stuff. And then you never expect it, right? But the movie turns into this vampire story, where they go to Mexico, and it's like, what? There's like stripper ladies, whatever. They turn into these vampires, and you don't really expect it. It's one of those weird movies where there's a really giant plot twist, and Robert Rodriguez is behind it, and Robert Rodriguez is behind Death Proof as well. So I'm gonna assume that the reason why Death Proof fell flat was because of Robert Rodriguez and his cheesiness, or it could have just been Tarantino thing about, apparently this was like a tribute to the grindhouse genre, which is to do with, I don't even know much about the grindhouse genre. So yeah, definitely said enough about Tarantino's movies. So the other guy I was going to mention was